Hello, it's Monday. Welcome again to another week of Bible Story Children's Time here at our new time of 5 o'clock. Hope that's working out for you. So let's get started. We were talking last week about Moses and how he had been, as a child, threatened by Pharaoh, so his mom set him up in a basket by the banks of the Nile, and he was found by the Pharaoh's daughter, and he was raised up in the Pharaoh's household, and he became a fugitive after he killed somebody who had been mistreating one of the Hebrew slaves, either because he just thought it was an injustice or because he knew somehow that he was a Hebrew and the injustice was too much for him that way. But either way, he killed somebody and then ran for his life because Pharaoh was out to get him. And he met some women in a place called Midian, became the husband to one of them. Her name was Zipporah, and he became a shepherd for her father. And that's pretty much where we left the story last week. Quick recap. So, as Moses was living the shepherd's life, he would follow the flock around from place to place. He knew where the water was, so he'd take them from here to there to the next place and find new places for them to graze. So one day, he had led the flock to the far side of the wilderness. He came to a place called Mount Horeb, which is known as the Mountain of God. And while he was there with his sheep, with his father-in-law's sheep, something remarkable happened. He was just sitting there, doing the shepherd thing, just chilling. And all of a sudden, off in the distance, he saw a light. And it was not a light in the sky, it was a light on the side of the hill, and it was very curious. And the more he studied it, the more he realized that it was a bush that was burning, but yet it didn't burn up. So he thought, that is just weird. I mean, it looks like it's on fire, but it's not. It doesn't turn to ash or anything. So he went over to check it out. Natural curiosity got the best of him. So he went up onto the mountain to see this miraculous burning bush. And when God saw that he had come to look, God called to Moses from inside the burning bush. This is all found in Exodus chapter 3, by the way, if you want to take a look at it later. God called to Moses from the burning bush, and he said, simple message, Moses! Moses! Like I said, simple message. But it was to let Moses know that this was not just a natural phenomenon, but something supernatural was happening, something intelligent that knew his name. So he took another little half step toward the bush and he said, here I am. And the voice from inside the bush, the voice of God, said, all right, don't come any closer right now. Take off your sandals, because you are standing on holy ground. And of course it was holy because God was in his presence. And then the voice went on to further say, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And after this, Moses just hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Because everybody knew, it's one of those things, everybody knew that to look upon the face of God was to die. Not that many people had done it, but this is what people believed. And then God said, I have seen how miserable your people, the Hebrews, are in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their enslavement and because of the harsh conditions. So I have come down to rescue them. I have come down to free them from the harsh hands of the Egyptians, so that they may go back to the promised land, the land of milk and honey, the land I promised Abraham, so many years ago. Now you'd think Moses would be thinking, good news. God's here to save the Hebrews. Then the other shoe drops. Because after God has talked for a little bit about what he's going to do, how he's going to, rescue the people who are suffering, he says to Moses, now go, because I am sending you, Moses, to confront Pharaoh and to bring my people Israel out of the land of Egypt. Now, needless to say, Moses does a double take at that. Because Moses' social status in Egypt is 0 right now. Moses is the fugitive, the guy who killed an Egyptian and then left the country. And he basically says just that. He says, come on, man, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? That's not a job for me, dude. And God just says, I will be with you. You're not doing this alone. I'll be with you every step of the way. And after you've brought them out of Egypt, you can come here and worship with them. And Moses said, okay, now just for a minute, just for a fast minute, let's say that I am crazy enough to do what you're asking me to do. And I go to the Israelites and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. Then they ask, well, what is this God's name? What do I tell them? And here God gives one of the most mysterious and powerful answers that you will read in the Bible, because the answer God gives is, I am who I am. And drops the mic. Because God, you know how you go somewhere and you have to identify yourself, they'll say, who are you? And you pull out your license and you say, okay, that's me. God basically was saying, no, I am who I am. I am God. I am the creator. I am this ongoing work of creation and divine inspiration in the universe. So don't go asking me for an ID. So just tell them. If they ask, tell them, I am has sent me. And now I want you to go, you get together the elders the elders of Israel, and you tell them that the Lord God of their fathers has appeared to you and said that you are to lead them out of Egypt. They'll listen to you, Moses. Trust me. tell you what, try doing this as a trick. Because not only, they'll listen to you, they'll believe you. Pharaoh, we're not sure. So Pharaoh, you go and you ask, you don't tell, you ask and you say, listen, we've been asked to pray to God, our God, so I want to lead my people out of the city for 3 days so we can go into the wilderness and offer sacrifices and pray. And see what he says. Now, I think I know the Pharaoh, and I think I know he is not really going to go along with this, but I will reach out my mighty hand, and I will strike them with wonders so that they will believe what you say and that they will let you go. And you know what? Better than that, even. I will make the Egyptians favorably disposed to you so that before you leave, your women can ask their neighbors and any women they have living with them. They can ask them for gold and silver and whatever treasures they want, and the Egyptians will just give them to you. They'll say, sure, here, take it, please. How does that sound? And Moses has a hard time with this because he knows what the Egyptians are like. He grew up in the Pharaoh's household. He knew they are not just going to take any barbarian bumpkin's word for things. So Moses says, okay, God, I get what you're saying. Trust me, I feel you. I understand what you're telling me. But I don't think they'll believe me. What proof do I have? I mean, I don't know how I can prove that I've talked to you. Now, at this time, remember Moses was a shepherd. And at this time, and all the time he'd been standing there talking to God, he'd been holding his staff, his shepherd staff. So God looks at him and says, hey, what's that in your hand? Moses looks, that staff, piece of wood. God says, go ahead, throw it on the ground. Moses kind of, okay. I'm not sure what this is going to prove, but okay. And he takes his staff and he throws it on the ground. And when it hits the ground, it turns into a snake. And Exodus has this marvelous little brief passage within a passage that says, the staff became a snake and he ran from it. Such a perfectly natural thing. Moses saw the staff turn into a snake, and his first inclination was to run, which he did. And then the Lord reached out and he said, okay, I get it, you're scared. Now come on back. Reach down. Just reach down, Moses. All you gotta do, come on, reach down. You can do it. Reach down. Reach down, grab it by the tail. That's all you gotta do, Moses. Grab it by the tail. And Moses did, and it instantly turned back into a staff. And God said, this is how they might believe that you've been talking to me. And God thought about it for a moment, and he said, okay, your hand, Moses. Put it inside your cloak. Do the Napoleon thing. Put it in your cloak. Moses did that. And God said, okay, now take it out. He takes out his hand and it's turned white. And it's got sores and he's got leprosy, man. dread disease of that time. He looks at his hand and he's like freaking out. Moses is going, what are you doing? God says, just chill. Put it back in your cloak. And he puts it back in his cloak. God says, okay, take it out again. Takes it out. And it's perfectly normal. He's even got all of his fingers here. And God says, okay, that also, if the staff doesn't do it, that should do it. But you know what? If they don't believe that, then you go down to the river, you go down to the Nile, you take a pitcher and you take out some water, and then you pour it on the dry ground. And as it sits there on the ground, it will turn to blood. Now Moses hears all this, and he's feeling a little trapped. Because every objection he's bringing up, God has an answer to. You know, what do I tell him your name is? And he tells him. What if they don't believe me? And he shows him 3 signs that he will do to prove he is who he is. Or not that he is who he is, but that he has actually talked to God. And Moses pulls out the last ditch card here. He pulls it out and he says, all right, God, you know what? This sounds like a great plan. You've thought it out very well. But I've never been eloquent. I don't talk good. So, you know, as somebody who is slow of speech and tongue, I don't think I'm the right guy to be speaking for you. And God looks at him and says, come on, who gave you your mouth, Moses? Who gives you your sight, or who makes you blind? Or go, I'll help you. I'll help you speak. I'll teach you what to say. You just pay attention to me, and I'll get you through this. And Moses says, you know, really, don't take this the wrong way, God, but, you know, I'm a disaster. I cannot speak worth a dime. You've got to send someone else. And God gets a little bit angry. He says, all right, you're not off the hook. But what about your brother Aaron, the Levite? He can speak well. He's got, you know, silver tongue. You go, you talk to Aaron first, you enlist him, he will come with you, he will be your mouthpiece, he will say what I want you to say, and say it well. But this is this is it. We're done arguing, dude. You take Aaron, or you go get Aaron, you get him on your side, and then you're going to the Egyptians. You're taking your staff with you, and you're going to tell them what I said. And we'll see what happens. Moses, against his better judgment, says, okay, you got me. I'll do it. And he goes back to his father-in-law, who incidentally is known as Jethro, which is not the same first name that he had in the previous chapter. But it's believed Jethro is actually a title that means like revered one or something like that. But he goes back to his father and he says, father-in-law, he says, you know what, Dad? I'm going to take your daughter and your grandson, and we're going back to Egypt because I want to see my folks. And Jethro says, okay, that's fine. And perhaps in the back of his head, Moses, projecting human traits on him, Moses may have been kind of hoping that father-in-law would give him some grief, but he doesn't. So as Moses is getting ready to leave, God does give him a bit of good news. He says, you know what? When you go back to Egypt, you'll find that everybody who wanted you dead, like the last Pharaoh and all of his minions, they're all dead. So you're going to be encountering somebody completely new, but at least the one that wanted to kill you is dead. So, that's a good thing, right? Moses said, yeah, I guess. So he gathered up his wife, gathered up his son, made sure he had his staff with him, and he headed back to Egypt. And that sets up the rest of the story. And we'll hear more about this tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great evening. Stay cool. Stay safe. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.